Welcome into a brand new edition of the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, tobaccoroadsportsradio.com. Loaded week. Of course, you all know if you're here in the Triad, it's rivalry week here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio, culminating on Friday night's huge, biggest high school football game in the state. East Forsyth taking on number one ranked Grimsley at Jameson Stadium. It's 10,000 people. We're going to be there. We're going to be across multiple radio stations, NFHS Network, Tobacco Road, everything. We'll get you all set up for that throughout the week. First, we got Demetri Ravanos in the house from the College Football Bubble Bath and the podcast. This team is killing us on the Carolina Panthers. Him and Lauren Brownlow on that on OG Triangle Media. We're going to get into some college football. I wanted Demetri on because he is the biggest Alabama fan that I could think of, and I had to. I've got to ask him some. I've got questions. I've got all kinds of
you and me both, brother.
We're going to talk Alabama. We got Bill Belichick. All kinds of stuff. We're going to talk here in college football, and we'll sprinkle in a little Panther bonus stuff there at the very end, too. It's Tuesday. It's the Desmond Johnson Show. Let's go ahead and roll that intro.
Live with Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
Yeah, welcome to the Carolinas. Everywhere you go, the sky is Carolina Blue, the finest. Live action, feedback, the city need that. I've been number one, no cap. Here's the recap. Adrenaline is my addiction. I'm about to relapse. Step on the turf if you want and get your weed whacked. I'm going harder than a martyr on the slaughter end. It's the heart of man, that's a rap like a cardigan. I'm breaking records, it's fourth and inches, I count the seconds. The over-under's my roar of thunder, my secret weapon. Yeah, the game is to be told. I don't break, I break modes. Follow me on Tobacco Road.
Desmond Johnson, son, the live is one. Represent NC to the fullest.
And again, welcome into the Desmond Johnson Show here, the beginning of our sports week here at Tobacco Road Sports Radio. It's Tuesday, September the 2nd, 2025. We got a loaded week for you and a loaded show for you today. Demetri Ravanos joining us here from College Football Bubble Bath, and this team is killing us podcast. Demetri, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Let me ask you a question to start this out, since you are getting ready to for this big high school rivalry on Friday.
Yeah.
I've lived in North Carolina for 20 years. You obviously have been here longer than me. You are a lifer. Do North Carolina high school football fans appreciate what the expectations at the next level are for Brandon Faison?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'm not sure. They understand football. They understand high school.
Yeah.
Football.
That I get.
Audience.
That I get. I think with Faison, it's not just the talent. It would be the talent in Josh Heupel's offense if he sticks with Tennessee. Obviously, like, man, we could be talking about all-time numbers out of that guy with that arm in that system.
I will say, out of the teams and the schools that we deal with at Tobacco Road, I'm very picky about who I bring onto the network or whatnot. There's been a handful of kids where when I'm calling a game on a Friday, I'm like, that kid's going to play on Sunday. Like, there's not a lot of them. There's only maybe 4 or 5 total, and Faison's probably one of those kids. Number one ranked in the country. I don't believe he's playing Friday, actually. He tore a ligament in his hand or something a week before last in the season opener against West Charlotte down in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium that Grimsley won in overtime, and I think it happened in overtime. I think he was reaching over the goal line and got hit on the hand. He did not play last week against West Forsyth. I do not know if he's going to play this week or not. I would think he's probably not, but the freshman quarterback that they have at Grimsley is really good too.
Well, I mean, this will sound like I'm being a smartass, but I am absolutely not. Respectfully, protect that investment, Brandon.
Yeah.
You do what you need to do.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if we don't see Faison Brandon for the rest of the regular season. You know, and Grimsley is loaded. They've got 5-star kids besides him, so it's going to be a huge matchup. And Grimsley and East Forsyth have not seen each other since 2020. Where they usually have played each other every year, and then they've just been like two ships circling each other for the past 4 years. So we're excited for that matchup later on Friday night, starting at 7 o'clock here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. I wanted to bring you in. I'm not going to jump to Bama yet. We're going to save that.
I was about to say, what else can I talk about?
Save that for a little bit later on. I want to talk about last night. The spectacle in Chapel Hill of Bill Belichick, head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. You know I'm a Tar Heel fan. It still feels weird for me to even say those words, even though it's been months we've had time to get accustomed to it. How surprising was the debut last night in terms of what happened? It's the most points that any Bill Belichick coach team has ever given up. 48-14 losers to TCU. It was like a like a Cinderella storybook type thing for the first, I don't know, 8 minutes, maybe that first drive.
Yeah, I was about to say for the first drive. Yeah,
Yeah, the crowd's going nuts. Michael Jordan's in the stands.
I think what people have to remember here and understand that, like, I'm not saying TCU is so much more talented. What I am saying is this North Carolina team is the worst collection of talent that Bill Belichick has ever coached. That's just the nature of going from the NFL to college. This whole time have wondered how a guy that we've saw multiple times get in the face and scream at the best quarterback that has ever played the position in the history of the world is going to deal with a 19-year-old from Kinston played quarterback for him. Now, granted, that's not where we are yet, but that's going to be where we get to eventually. I'm not surprised, frankly. And I don't think that is like a portender of this is what to expect all season. I still look at their their schedule rather, and think it is really hard to find 4 more losses this year. I did not think they were going to win. I didn't think they were going to get routed. But at the same time, like, what have you heard that Belichick has done that is football focused this offseason? Like, everything has been about either his girlfriend or the sort of air of leave us alone, we know better around his coaching staff.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that, the Bill Belichickian way where you don't get a depth chart, press it and really get a chance to really see who's on the team. They had over 70 new players from last year's roster to this year. I think it's the most turnover of any team in FBS. And I'm just looking through some of these numbers because I popped in and out of this game last night. I watched some of the first half, and then I was like, you know what? This reminds me of the Patriots, which I do not care for. So yeah. I'm just like, I don't like this. It's like 3 and out. I'll come back and check on this a little bit later. I come back, it's 48-14. I'm like, what happened? Like, the bottom just fell out here.
I think as the season goes on, when Gio Lopez gets cooking, he's going to be a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching him at South Alabama last year for that is where my father-in-law was a professor in the medical school. I grew up around the corner from the campus, so I do have a soft spot for USF. So I came in familiar with Gio Lopez. But look, I mean, just like anybody that transfers into Alabama or Georgia, the ACC or the SEC is a step up from the ACC. The ACC is a huge step up from the Sun Belt. And, getting work under a guy that is coming in very pro style versus what Major Applewhite has run his whole career, the head coach now at South Alabama. There's going to be a learning curve. I think Gio Lopez is going to be good, but I think there's going to be a learning curve here.
And he got hurt in the game. They brought in Max Johnson, who hadn't played in over a year since his horrific injury. Yeah. And then of course,
by the way, before that horrific injury, when he did play, it was not fantastic to say the least.
No, not really. No, not at all. And of course, I'm sitting here, I got my East for Life shirt on, or whatever. I'm like, is Bryce Baker going to get in this game?
Yeah.
Who's their star recruit and really Belichick's first recruit that stayed on. He'd signed on before Belichick came in, stayed on with him. He's wandering the sideline somewhere. I'm like, is he going to get a shot to play this year? Because I'm thinking he wasn't going to get a chance to play, but I don't know. But
maybe. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait and see what's up with Gio long term and can Max put together something that at least meets Belichick's standard for what he's expecting out of that position. But at the same time, if you can sell the Belichick mystique, if you can sell, or I guess maybe if you can get your boosters to buy into the NIL and they feel like they can keep Baker around and don't have to use up a red shirt this year, maybe they're thinking that's going to be advantageous in the long run. I don't pretend to know what Bill Belichick is thinking.
Some fun numbers from this Carolina TCU game from Monday night. Carolina only managed 10 first downs for the entire game, 50 yards rushing total for the entire game.
Yeah.
172 yards passing total. They had 4 fumbles. They lost 2 of them. The Heels punted for more yards than they gained on offense total. They punted for 234 yards on 6 punts. They only had 222 yards of total offense. And again, when I turned it, I was watching it off and on. It almost looked like they didn't want to try to pass the ball. Gio Lopez went like an hour and some change without a completed pass. Like it just looked like they were trying to instigate a rock fight, and TCU was like, we don't have any rocks. We have pistols.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is a certain element of when you start to feel it slip away like that. I mean, look, to get back into the game, you got to start throwing the ball. But before it gets so far away that you are scrambling to get back into the game, I mean, like, I think it's a pretty natural thing to want to keep the ball on the ground and keep that clock rolling. It didn't work out for Bill Belichick. I think that, like I said, that schedule's pretty advantageous. I don't think people are going to walk away from this season feeling like everything was terrible. Or that this was a huge mistake. What I will say is, this was a team that needed a culture and talent overhaul. I would never have guessed Bill Belichick was going to be the guy they counted on to do that. But, this season was always going to have some growing pains because of kind of what had happened under Mac Brown. They never got bad, but they also were never going to challenge for anything serious. And
that's the unspoken thing right there. Yeah, where the program was when Mac Brown got let go and what they're trying to do. And, honestly, to me, I'm sort of looking at the roster. I'm like, there's not really a name that stands out. I'm like, ooh, that's a great wide receiver. That's a great running back. That's a great corner. They always had a couple of those 5-star kids that just kind of stood out in the roster talent-wise. I don't really see that in this collection.
Well, I think that the rest of college football, and granted, let's be fair, Carolina was not in the discussion for any of the top players in the portal to begin with, but I do think the top names in college football, not only in terms of record, but guys like Dion and guys like Mike Norvell, who maybe their teams didn't reflect it, but they are excellent when it comes to recruiting in the portal. I think they did a really good job of messaging. You don't know what you're getting into by going to Carolina. And there's a reason that the Colorados, the Florida States, and the Oklahomas of the world year after year are just thriving in the portal in ways that maybe don't reflect that on the field.
Demetri Ravanos joining us here from the College Football Bubble Bath podcast, and This Team is Killing Us, which is based on the Carolina Panthers. He co-hosts with Lauren Brownlow over on OG Triangle Media. I want to skip over to Arch Manning, and one of the games I did watch this weekend was Texas and Ohio State, and that was a very low-scoring affair. It was a defensive battle, but a lot of bluster in terms of Arch Manning's performance. And I didn't realize that the high school he came from was like a 2A school or something. And then he played a couple of games last year and while Quinn Ewers was hurt. And that's really been it. He hasn't really played until now. And then your first starting, this is my team opportunity. You go up to Ohio to the Horseshoe. There's 110,000 fans screaming at you, and you play that game. Are you worried about is it an overreaction about Arch Manning after one game to you, or were there some worry spots you saw there that you were kind of like, oh, maybe we need to pull back here on some of this combo?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. We're definitely seeing an overreaction when people talk about that he was all hype and nothing else. I think it is telling that he played those 2 games when Quinn Ewers was hurt last year, and going forward after that, there was at least a package for him in every game afterwards. Like he flashed a lot when he got on the field last year. The Mannings, the family apparatus, let's say, is very good at massaging the narrative they want out there. I am not saying I know this for a fact. I am saying, knowing what I know of the Mannings, I could see them communicating to Steve Sarkisian in Texas that he's not going to do anything that makes Arch look like anything other than the best teammate in the world, or else we might rethink where we're playing football next season. So I think that played a big role in not pushing the envelope a little bit further with him last year. That being said, it was not good, right? Like at the end of the third quarter, he had 38 yards passing. And I've been pointing this out on College Football Bubble Bath. It's not like Ohio State's quarterback, Julian Sayin, was any better. He just doesn't have 2 years of hype and a big name.
Yeah, the last name. Yeah.
Behind him in the same way. Yeah, I think Texas is too stacked for this to be a lingering problem, this disappointment to be a lingering problem. And I think the biggest thing coming out of that game, honestly, Arch fell from 6-1 to win the Heisman to 16-1. That's largely a narrative-driven award. Go buy your ticket right now.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't pay off, 16-1 for Arch is pretty good value.
And he'll come out and throw for like 440 yards this upcoming Friday. They're playing. It's like a cupcake squad, I believe.
Yeah, I can't remember who it is, but like the next 3 are whoever it is this week. I can't remember, but then it's
UTEP Christian or something. Yeah,
something like that. But then it's UTEP, and then it's Sam Houston State. Like, I think we're not even going to have this conversation again for 4 weeks, and then we'll know for sure what Arch needed, what Arch can handle, et cetera, et cetera. I still think he is among the very best pro prospects amongst quarterbacks in college football. I believe he will get it together. I believe your first start in college, or I guess your to open the first season, you are the designated starter in college at the Horseshoe the day they are celebrating the national championship. Oh, and by the way, Lee Corso just retired on the field before. Like, that's a tall order for anybody. So yes, it was disappointing. No, I'm not writing the guy off.
Okay, so and Texas, I believe, still favored to win SEC, still national champion favorite, loaded both sides of the ball. So we'll see if Arch Manning is fact or fiction pretty much pretty quickly here. So all right, I've held it off long enough. Let's get into it. Alabama. Were you
shocked? Yeah. I mean,
how worried are you? Let me put it that way. How worried are you about the future? Because this is going off of you guys were 8-4 last year, I believe.
8-4. Yeah.
Nothing.
8-4. Yeah.
8-4. Nothing close. Nothing close to the Nick Saban era of Alabama football that you guys have become accustomed to over the past 2 decades. How worried are you about the Alabama football program here going forward after what you saw? Because to me, it looked like Florida State was the SEC team and Alabama was the ACC team, and it just felt like some of the attention to detail that we're used to seeing with Nick Saban coach teams just wasn't there. Like there wasn't a sense of urgency. Your thoughts as a diehard Alabama fan?
Well, I think a couple things. So number one, my worry, I tend to take this a season at a time because college football is so volatile in the way rosters are built now. To me, I am a believer in the DeBoer Ryan Grubb combo. I have seen what they can do. That being said, they achieved their most success with a quarterback that they had for the better part of 5 years. Because remember, these guys were together at Indiana when Michael Penix was the quarterback there. But also with a group of receivers that had been together for a long time. A group of receivers who I think all of the top 3 of those guys went in the first 2 rounds of the following NFL draft. Like Alabama doesn't have that kind of collection right now. And the bigger thing is, Des, I just don't think we have a quarterback. I mean, I know that there were people. Okay, look, I'm gonna cut the BS and just tell you what it is that I have.
Let it out.
Yeah,
this
is what I've been worried about. And I went to Bama. I'm from Alabama. I do a lot of media down in Alabama because of the college football bubble bath and my connection to the SEC. I had a lot of people last year tell me when Jalen Milroe would struggle that, everybody knows Ty Simpson is better, but Kalen DeBoer is worried about losing the locker room if he benches Jalen Milroe. It's moving on from the Saban era. It's, inserting his own guy. And of course, there's always the unspoken. And of course, because of woke, he won't get benched, blah, blah, blah. So I spent every time someone would tell me that, I would answer back, I feel like Kalen DeBoer is trying to win football games. And I kind of tend to believe if Ty Simpson was the better quarterback, Ty Simpson would be the quarterback, right? Like if this guy was what everybody said he was, he would have thrown more than 8 passes in 3 years. So Des, don't get me wrong. I was as frustrated as everybody else with that game. But I would be lying to you if I did not say I spent my Saturday night texting all of these people that would tell me that. Can he not hit an open receiver because of woke? Does he collapse immediately under pressure because of DEI? Like, I just don't think we have a good quarterback. And like, I don't know, maybe there was some pressure because this dude had waited his turn to start him. But honestly, my worry is if you had 3 guys that highly touted in the quarterback room and Ty Simpson is the one that wins the competition, maybe we just don't have a quarterback this year.
We don't have a quarterback, and that's
which is a throwback long before the Saban era. I mean, I've been comparing this guy to Tyler Watts, who was the quarterback when I was a sophomore, and Tyler Watts was, one of these sawed-off little white boys that could move, but good God, do not ask him to throw the ball because that is not going to end well. And I think we're right back there.
It might be a long season in Tuscaloosa. I'm not sure. I mean, Alabama fans aren't used to this. It's kind of like what the Patriot fans just went through.
Okay, so this is the thing. So SEC Unfiltered, the company I do college football bubble bath for, there are a couple of other Alabama alums that are on that staff, and they are all way younger than me. in their 20s. And I have told them, because I'm 44, I have told them, you are not allowed to talk to me or complain to me about this team. You have not seen how bad it can get, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I absolutely would have preferred we do better than 9-4 last year. But when I was in school, we were keeping our fingers crossed for an Independence Bowl invite. That has not left me the way that so many of these 20 and 30 somethings have never even had to deal with because they grew up during the 7 years.
It reminds me of my good friend JP Mundy. He's a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and he's constantly complaining about the Steelers and Mike Tomlin and all this stuff. I'm like, do you understand that if they ever fired Mike Tomlin, he would have a job before he left the parking lot? Like, there are teams, there are fan bases. I'm a Panther fan. There are fan bases that are out here like watching the Steelers rattle off winning season after winning season. You know, we haven't won a playoff game in 10 years. So what? you're still winning games. Like your Sundays are still enjoyable. Like my Sundays have been a chore, and so have yours to a certain extent. Having to watch Panther games from beginning to end. And we're going to talk about the Panthers just a second before I get you out of here. But I did want to stay real quick on college football and in the ACC. Florida State winning that huge game against Alabama, and of course Miami with a huge win over Notre Dame. 2 top 10 teams going at it. If Florida State and Miami are back to where they were before they joined the ACC, there was this magical dream that we would bring in Florida State, you bring in Miami, you turn the ACC into a football conference. They go on doing Florida State, Miami things, and they have not really done that at the same time since they both come into the league. Is this potentially the year where Florida State and Miami can be nationally relevant at the same time and lift the ACC up to some sort of prominence that they hadn't had and really ever in college football? Do you think that they're good enough to do that, or do you think that this week was just kind of like a flash in the pan type moment for the ACC?
I'm not dismissing Florida State. Like I think it would be impossible for them not to be better than they were last year, but I do hope everybody recognizes that a big chunk of that game was not Florida State. That was Gus Malzahn versus Alabama. If anybody knows how to beat Alabama, it is that dude. Yeah. In fact, I would recommend when Auburn finally gets around to firing Hugh Freeze, they might want to look at that offensive coordinator down in Tallahassee. It's
probably not happening. Yeah.
Can they lift up the ACC? No, because there is such a huge divide between them and Clemson. And I know that we're a little bit down on Clemson because of the loss to LSU, but FSU and Miami don't have the roster that Clemson has right now. FSU may not have the roster that Louisville has right now. And on top of all of that, it's really tough. And let's move Miami to the side and just talk about Florida State here. It's really tough no matter what Florida State is to think of them as lifting up the ACC when they have made it very public. They do not want to be a part of this anymore.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Yeah, that's that's because that's kind of where I was going. I'm like, Florida State kind of led the charge of trying to break up the ACC.
Yeah.
And really, in effect, they've made it where if it does happen, they sped up the process with what they did in the courts or whatnot. I have David Glenn on. He's the co-host every other Tuesday, and he's like my legal guy. So I always ask him, did they get mission accomplished? And he was like, basically, yes. They knew they weren't going to be able to get out like this year, but they made it where the window shorter.
But here's the problem with David is also an ACC guy and is blind sometimes to the fact, and I don't mean David, I mean all ACC guys are blind to the fact that nobody wants Florida State. Nobody wants Clemson. They don't bring value to the SEC because the SEC is all about footprint. They don't bring value to the Big Ten because the Big Ten, you have to meet certain academic standards. And I think Florida State does, but Clemson doesn't. But at the same time, like if the Big Ten is going to admit a school in Florida, they want Miami. Like the Big Ten still operates like media markets matter. If the ACC falls apart, I think you and I have had this conversation before, Des. If the ACC falls apart, Carolina and Duke will have a home. Everybody else, good luck. I'm not saying they won't have a home. I'm saying it won't be as easy for everybody else.
I would even say Duke. I'd say Carolina and Virginia. Those are the two.
No, I disagree because I think if I'm Greg Sankey, commissioner of the SEC, and there are reports that there have already been conversations about Carolina's interest. If I'm Greg Sankey, I want the brand of that rivalry. I want Duke Carolina to be an SEC game, A, and B, I think what is valuable now is not media markets. What is valuable is brands. And in football, there aren't any brands floating around out there. Carolina and Duke are the epitome of brands in basketball.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you can kind of do the same thing if you're looking for ACC teams to poach. And under that logic, you just said Louisville would come into play with the Louisville Kentucky type rivalry. You know, if they're looking for stuff like that, I've always been the one that said the ACC at this point, okay, they already know now 2036, maybe a little bit earlier than that now because of what happened with the lawsuits. There's a possibility something's going to change here.
Yeah.
If I'm them, instead of being reactive the way they always are, they react to what the Big Ten did, to what the SEC did, and they pick up the crumbs. Be proactive. Go raid the Big 12 or something, man. Like, go get Kansas or something. You know, like go get some of these schools. And
especially given the ACC's history, like there is no Big East to raid for teams anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like that, and that was the move every single time until the Pac-12 fell apart.
Because the Big East got bloated, and then they just started plucking teams away from because the Big East wanted to be a football conference, and they never really were.
Yeah, and I mean, this last time around, the ACC, look, to me, I think Florida State, Clemson, and Carolina had a very good case for, like, this thing is not sustainable, this thing is not serious. When you start letting Notre Dame, who won't even commit to the conference, tell you to expand border to border, it's... Dude, the time bomb is ticking. It's over. Like the ACC is a chicken with its head cut off, not knowing it's dead yet.
And I hate it because I grew up on those Jefferson Pilot quadruple double Saturday. You know, Kenny Anderson taking on.
Yeah, I want to be clear. Even though I'm an SEC guy, I'm not rooting for the ACC to collapse. I just don't have any emotional investment, and I see it's coming. I know it's coming.
And there's no way for this is something me and DG have talked about before too. When people were saying that the ACC made a bad deal with ESPN, when they did it, they were doing it to save the league. Like people forget Maryland had just left, like in the middle of the night, and all these schools agreed to this. Like they all signed this, which was what DG's point was. It's like you can't sign for a mortgage and then like 2 years later be like, you know what, I kind of changed my mind. I don't want. No, you signed for it. This is kind of this is binding, and that's kind of where they were stuck at. My whole thing now, though. If they're not going to just go for it and make like a 24-team super conference that stretches the entire continental United States, which is, I mean, they've got schools on the West Coast right now. And the ACC.
The problem is who could the ACC add and call themselves a super conference? Like, I feel like at this point you are just adding a bunch what's out there, what would be like realistically available to you. I mean, you're adding a bunch of Virginias and Wake Forests. Like, who cares?
Yeah, see, and that's the problem. There's nobody left. Like, I mean, there's nobody huge left. I guess the last ones were UCLA, the remnants in the Pac-12. And now, again, like I said, I would look at the Big 12 and look at them. Okay, TV deals expiring. Where? Like here. Okay, what if we went out and got Kansas, Colorado, Texas Tech? I don't know. You just need more teams, and the more teams you have, you're just going to pay more. But you kind of want to keep an eye on the basketball side of it too. In my mind, I'm like, do you want to be the top football conference? No, you'll never be there. Can you be the top basketball conference? Yeah, you kind of can. You can kind of put some of that together.
But let's be real. Top basketball conference doesn't pay the way way even being the fourth football conference does.
So real quick before I get you out of here, though, I want to take advantage of the fact that you do host the Panthers podcast. This team is killing us. The Carolina Panthers. You and Lauren Brownlow host this each week during the season. Panthers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. 1:00 on Sunday. It's the opener for the NFL. And I'm sure you know by now the whole this is our year thing because of the stuff that happened before the J-Lo getting divorced and Ohio State winning a national championship and us opening at Jacksonville. What's going to be the main thing? Because we were talking about this off the air. What's the main storyline going into week one for the Panthers for you that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, now it has become the health of the wide receiver room. I mean, Jalen Coker now being out at least 3 weeks. I am not somebody that was in love with the Hunter Renfrow story. Now, don't get me wrong. As camp progressed and it was clear he still had something to offer, I was very happy that was the case. I don't love that now he's been thrust into this position where he is probably going to be one of the 4 receivers on the field when they go 4 wide. If, he was on the cut line just 2 weeks ago. I think as it relates to this game, it is 2 things. Number one, Liam Cohen and Dave Canales are pretty familiar with each other. Both of these guys got their first NFL head coaching job after 1 year as the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think both of these guys look at Bryce Young and see the model in Baker Mayfield. Liam Cohen said earlier this week that the thing that he knew about Bryce, not only from watching film, but also from being the offensive coordinator at Kentucky when Bryce was at Alabama, was even when this guy is running, he's still a passer. Until he crosses the line of scrimmage, you have to be prepared for him to throw. And that is just a very different type of quarterback to defend. This game is very winnable. Very, very winnable for the Panthers. In fact, I am picking the Panthers to win this game. The goal should be don't become the poster child for we are living in the Travis Hunter era of the NFL now.
I wasn't even going to ask this question, but I think we need to start asking this question. Has Trevor Lawrence entered this territory of, I can't call him a bust, but I've always joked that he's the best quarterback in the NFL. Like he's literally like whenever you talk about great quarterbacks, he's like number 15, number 17, like always. He's never top 10 quarterback. He's never at the bottom of the barrel. But people forget this dude was highly touted coming out of high school. Like he was the number 1 ranked quarterback and led Clemson to a national championship. He was the number 1 pick overall. Like
seen as a can't miss prospect coming out.
Thoughts on Trevor Lawrence now? I mean, he's still young. He's 25 years old.
Right.
So like your thoughts on him right now?
I don't know if it would have been better for Trevor Lawrence if the Jets had lost, what was that, in week 15 of that season, that then knocked them out of the number 1 pick. Because the Jets are pretty dysfunctional, right? But I don't think Trevor Lawrence, starting off his career under a head coach that had no interest in being a coach in the NFL, did him any favors. The Doug Peterson turnaround, year 1 of Peterson in Jacksonville, showed you that the old Trevor Lawrence was still in there. It's just there was nothing ever got built on top of that, right? And that's a little bit concerning. The Jaguars are historically a snake-bitten franchise. I think they finally have a true alpha dog wide receiver for him in BTJ, and that will change a lot about the way we think about what Trevor Lawrence is capable of, but I'm right there with you. I feel like now you talk about two people that don't pay attention to college football. You talk about how much talent Trevor Lawrence has, and you have to explain and even remind yourself, oh, yeah, this was 5 years ago that this happened. It's been a while since we've seen that Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's a bust because I think a bust has to kind of have the world laid at his feet and still screw it up. But it has not been what we thought it would be. That's fair.
Panthers, Jaguars, 1:00 kickoff from Jacksonville. You can watch that game on Fox. Demetri Ravanos again, host of the College Football Bubble Bath, and this team is killing us. Carolina Panthers podcast. You can catch him wherever you catch your podcasts online, and enjoy the wisdom of Mr. Demetri Ravanos over the course of a week. And we got week 2 of college football coming up here, starting Saturday. I'm going to get you guys out of here. I know people are trying to eat their lunches, trying to get back to their cubicles. So everybody get back to work. Tomorrow we've got Mark Pruitt, Winston-Salem Journal beat writer, on. He'll help me dissect this huge Grimsley's Forsyth matchup, plus Mark's other 2 big games of the week. He usually has 3 big games of the week that he will preview with us on Wednesdays. We might have a surprise in there too. And then, of course, Saturday we'll get you ready for college football and the NFL opening Sunday with Rod Funderburk, Ryan Smith, and former NFL tight end Ben Troop. So until tomorrow, we will see you then. You've been watching and listening to the Desmond Johnson Show here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. Everybody have a wonderful Tuesday.